Everyone. Hope you are well, as well as can be expected. This is Mark Schaefer with the fourth in this series that I'm calling Embracing the Chaos. So we're sort of working together and connecting together in this very disruptive time to try to figure out what we do for ourselves, what we do for our businesses. And if you look at the history of business and how businesses become successful, at some point in the life of a business, they figure out a way to embrace chaos. They overcome a problem, they overcome some disruption, or they create a disruption. And chaos is a big part of business. So we've certainly got a lot of chaos on our hands right now. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is uncertainty. So, when I started this program, I thought the most important thing we could talk about really was sort of the emotional tone of the marketplace right now, the emotional tone of our customers. We talked about really acknowledging the grief and the loss that we're all experiencing and that our customers are experiencing, and that everything we do in business and especially in marketing has to be done through this filter of recognizing that our customers are grieving and experiencing a lot of loss. Then the next major theme that I really talked about was, let's look at the trends. Let's look at what's happening on some of these consumer trends. What are some of the things that are going on right now that are significant? And most importantly, what are some of the things that are happening now that could change consumer behavior permanently when we get to the other side of this thing? So, by the way, if you missed the first episodes that I did in this series, I've posted them on YouTube, so you can find my channel, Mark W. Schaefer, on YouTube. If you want to go back and look at the other episodes and the other discussions that we've had, that would be great. So, what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about what I've learned, what I've discovered about handling uncertainty. And I'm happy that Dr. I of Classrooms Without Walls is helping me again today. So I'm going to be able to sort of concentrate on thinking about what I'm going to be talking about. And she's going to be monitoring your questions and curating your questions, which I will take at the end. So my idea is I'll try to keep this to about 30 minutes. And so anytime you have a comment or a question, just add it to the timeline, and I will get to that at the end, even though I don't acknowledge you now. I'm not going to say individual shout outs. I'll just say thanks to everyone, all of my friends who are coming on today. So, look, I think for me, uncertainty is a big thing that I'm really dealing with right now. And I'm guessing most people listening in today, watching me, are dealing with this too. Wall Street doesn't like uncertainty. Businesses don't like uncertainty. Our psychological makeup doesn't really like uncertainty. We like things to be smooth. We like a balance, and we like homeostasis. So I went out this week and I talked to some people who I respect in the business world to say, how are you dealing with uncertainty? What sort of advice would you give people? I also went out and looked for research that's been done on the psychology of uncertainty to look for best practices. So this presentation is going to be a little bit different. instead of just talking about one theme, I'm actually going to be giving you some practical advice. So you might want to take a few notes today that you can share with other people in your business. You might share this with people that are locked up with you in terms of how do we deal with uncertainty. Uncertainty is very scary. Uncertainty and the inability to deal with uncertainty can be really toxic to you right now because you're not going to make the right decisions for your business. So this is a really super important thing to sort of get a hold of today. Now, one of the nice pieces of advice that I got from Andy Crestadina. Andy, you may know, has Orbit Media. If you don't follow Andy, I certainly recommend that you do that. He's a very kind guy and a great intellect in our field. And so we had this exchange about uncertainty, and he said, if you think about business right now, you can think about it in terms of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You all remember that famous triangle of how people serve their needs, how they fulfill their needs. And at the very bottom is basic needs like, am I going to have food? Am I going to be safe? Am I going to have, money to pay for a roof over my head? And if you look at where most marketing is, it's at the very top, right? It's at the very top. So that's one of the reasons why business and marketing is so very difficult right now, because our customers are down here. In many cases, we're down there, right? Just trying to figure out where the money is going to be coming from to keep things going in our business over the next weeks and months. So I think this is a very useful way to think about things. And uncertainty, this idea of uncertainty, is down here at the bottom. So as long as we have uncertainty, we're not really going to be able to move up and make higher level decisions for our businesses and for ourselves. So I did, take some notes here to make sure that I cover the most important things for you. I'm going to be referring to these notes. So I actually, as I said, have a few ideas, really 7 sort of major ideas to talk about, to give you some ideas of how do you deal with uncertainty. That's the big thing. I think the question on most people's minds right now is, how long is this thing going to last? Are we going to go into a recession? If we have a recession, how long is that going to last? How am I going to affect it? Is the economy going to rebound? And these are all things that we don't know, we can't model, because this is unprecedented. All right, this is not your normal time. This is not your normal recession. We had millions and millions of people file for unemployment in one day, right? We've never ever seen anything like this. So everything about our world right now is uncertain. And we've got to find a way to embrace this chaos to do the best things for ourselves, our families, and for our businesses. So, point number 1 is that we have to find a way to settle down our limbic system, our response mechanism, okay? So whenever we're in a period of uncertainty, we respond in the part of our brain that responds to danger, all right? And this is a knee-jerk reaction. And if you think about what we talked about on the first episodes of this, we were talking about how everybody's doing that right now, right? I mean, we're operating out of fear, we're operating out of panic, and we have to get control of that. The people who are good at dealing with uncertainty, they recognize this irrational fear, and they spot it, and they deal with it before it begins to surface. Because if you don't, it's going to get out of control. All right. So what you're trying to do is, whenever you're scared and whenever you're uncertain, the primitive reactionary part of your brain takes over. This is the part of your brain, if you see something on the ground where you think it's a snake, even if you don't know it's a snake, it reacts. You jump back and then you say, oh, it was just a root of a tree or something, right? So we can't have that part of our brain operating right now. So we have to find a way to take control and be more rational. So we're going to talk about that as one of the major themes today. And one of the things that I saw in the research that kept coming up over and over and over and over again is this idea about finding some small thing to stay positive about. If you can, that turns a different part of your brain on. All right. So if you're not allowing your brain to be reactive and afraid, and you're focusing on something positive, that like changes the way you're reacting. It's changing the way you're thinking about things. And I can remember a story from early in my career. I had my first performance review, and my first job with this big American company. It was a terrible job. I mean, I was right out of college, right? And I was in corporate communications, and I had to get to the office 7 a.m. every morning, trudging to work in the dark. I'd be the only one in the office, and I would be doing like these global news summaries for our executives. That was my job. And I was at the bottom of the ladder. I was at the bottom of the corporate ladder. I was the new person, and I got the crappiest job. And here's what my boss told me in my performance review. He said, Mark, you've got the crappiest job. But you approach it with so much enthusiasm. And because you have this positive attitude, you literally change everybody around you. And he said, if I had to pick one characteristic in an employee, I would pick this enthusiastic, positive attitude above almost anything else, because you're creating a better workplace and a more productive workplace. This actually came out, I just saw this today in research that came out from Harvard. Harvard came out with this research that I think is very relevant to our time, that positive thoughts quiet irrational thinking. Positive thoughts quiet irrational thinking. So, I'm not a fluffy unicorn and rainbow kind of guy, right? But I do pay attention to science. So this idea of consciously, mindfully picking something positive to think about is very important to settle down they call it the lizard part of your brain, right? The reactive part of your brain. And look, I waver. I'm probably like you. I sort of get settled down. I settle on something positive to think about, and then I read the news, and I'm filled with uncertainty. So this idea of shifting your attention to something positive is super important. Now, another thing that I saw, this would be a point number 2. I'm going to cover 7 points today. I'll go through these a little more quickly than that one. Is number 1 is that people who do deal well with uncertainty, they identify what they know and what they don't know. So people who excel at managing uncertainty first take stock about what they know and what they don't know. And what they don't know, that's part of the uncertainty. And dwelling on that, it takes away your power because it's impossible to figure it out. So like you, one of the things, I try not to dwell on is what's going to happen next. How long is this going to last? What is this recession going to look like? That is out of my control. I don't know. The best economists in the world don't know. So you just have to put that aside. You have to let it go. You have to just let that go. And I know, I mean, I read a lot of news. Maybe I shouldn't be reading so much news, but a lot of people are saying maybe, limit, limit the amount of news that you read. So, an important idea here is if this is not in your control, if we can't see what's going to be coming next, you got to let it go, and you got to take it day by day. Now, number 3, and this is a big one for me, is that you have to embrace the things you can't control and realize that this does not represent a personal failure. Okay? So I come from, this Western European culture, this German culture where, you're very proud and you work hard and you supply your family, you take care and you protect your family, right? And I'm a pretty well prepared person, and I always had in the back of my mind that eventually we're going to have a recession, and I could sort of respond to that, but nobody could anticipate what's happened here, right? But somehow we need to take away that guilt. All right, we need to disassociate this emergency, this crisis, this thing that was totally unanticipated. We need to view that this is out of our control and that this is not some sort of a personal failure, right? The only thing we control right now are the decisions that we make. The only thing we control right now is our response, the decisions that we make, all right? So we have to disassociate ourselves from the crisis, from the uncertainty. We need to embrace this chaos and realize this is not our fault. That, we may feel like we're falling down on our responsibilities right now, but, this is not our fault. There's nothing we could have done to have planned for this. The only thing that we can be accountable for right now are our decisions. Now, number 4, focus on the key things that matter right now. So there's so much going on and there's so many distractions, and we're experiencing loss and disappointment in so many ways. Everything in normal in our life has sort of been disrupted and upset, and it's easy to get distracted by all these different things. When I was in the business world, there used to be a quality control manager of our company, and he was just obsessed with this idea. He'd say, what are your core 3 things? Just 3. What are your big 3? He said, don't tell me about all the different things and all the problems that you have. What are your 3? And I think that is how great businesses are run, period, but especially right now. So you have to focus, you have to identify right now, what are the 3 things that matter? Okay? This period of uncertainty could bring about a lot of stress. It could bring about a lot of changes. But right now, we just have to focus on 3. What are the 3 things? I talked to one of my customers the other day. He said, this is it. He said, I have to conserve cash. I've got to, cut costs, and I have to care for my people. Those are the 3 things, right? Every business has 3 things that you need to focus on right now. And that kind of ties into this last thing that we talked about, which is in this period of uncertainty, we can only really focus on, what is in our control. We have to focus on the decisions that we can make. So focus, what are the big 3 things for you? One of them might be taking care of our children in this crazy time, all right? If you've got children at home who are crawling all over you while you're trying to work, that's obviously got to be one of your top 3. But focus on 3 things, let everything go. That's just part of good business. I think focusing on the three most important things also sort of relieves us of a lot of tension and stress. Look, just reading the news today can sap us of a lot of energy. So by focusing on the critical three things for our business right now, it sort of removes some of the unnecessary pressures and distractions. Number 6, focus on actions even if they're not perfect. Okay? So this has really helped me a lot. In the early days of this crisis, the first couple of days, I just felt disoriented. I wrote a blog post about how it's going to be important to somehow get our footing again, because I'm a teacher. I'm an educator in everything that I do, whether I'm writing or I'm speaking on a stage or I'm doing a workshop or teaching a class. I sort of have the heart of a teacher, and that's my meaning. That's my purpose. And then it seemed like almost overnight, all of that was gone. Every single thing was canceled, and even what I was doing on my blog just didn't seem relevant anymore. I really was in a funk for a couple of days, just trying to get my footing and trying to figure out what's the new normal and what is my place in this. And so one of the actions that I focused on is something that you're seeing right now. And I just realized, well, look, I am a teacher. I do have a background in coaching and counseling. I'm good at it. That's my new purpose. That's what I can do now. This is an action I can take to really focus on trying to connect to people where they are right now through my writing. I can't be doing it in a class, but I can do it in a blog post. I can't be doing it, on a stage, but I can be doing it in a Facebook Live and maybe touching you. I've received nice feedback that the work that I'm doing, it is helping people. So that's sort of reframing, and I can focus on this action. It may not be perfect. The first Facebook Lives I did, I had some audio problems, right? Oh, well. Even like today, this is not a Hollywood production. I don't have a lower third with my name on it, right? I'm just kind of getting out there and putting stuff out into the world. So when the things that you focus on today, that determines your emotional state, right? So, that's sort of been one of the themes here today, is that if you're focusing on things that you can't control, if you're focusing on the negative and not the positive, that is going to determine your overall emotional state. And what did we just say? That emotional state is contagious. The emotional state spreads to other people, all right? This was literally in Harvard Business Review today. There's research about this. So if you're able to focus on action, some positive action that you can take, even a small one, even if it's not perfect, this is a time that it's okay to follow your instinct, to follow your gut, because we don't, no one has a game plan for this. No one has a template. No one is pulling out a PowerPoint slide saying, oh, this is what you do in the coronavirus, right? Nobody's ever done this before. So follow your instinct, trust your gut, and, give your intuition some space. For me, I just had to take some time out, and that's not really comfortable for me. I'm a person who is always really, super busy, super focused. And then, here I am and everything sort of stops. And I just had to take a little time to reassess. Now, the last point here, it's a simple one. and then I will take some of your questions. As I mentioned, Dr. I has been curating your questions. I see that we have a few here, but I'll finish up here and then I'll turn it over to you. The last thing, and this is a hard one, but it sort of is. I think this is kind of an overarching umbrella. Is we have to stop asking, "What if?" Gosh, that's hard. That is super super hard because I'm a planner, and I'm looking at all the different scenarios in the news, and I want to make sure. But what if statements, that's fuel for your stress. What if statements throw fuel on the fire of your anxiety? And there's no place for it right now, okay? So once you let go of these, you identify what's not in your control and you focus on what are the decisions I can make right now. That's what's in your control, right? The virus is not in your control. Unemployment is not in your control. The economy is not in your control. The recession is not in your control. What your neighbors are doing is not in your control. What's in your control are the decisions that you make right now and taking positive actions on those decisions. And you got to let go of the what ifs. And I know that's really, really hard. So thank you for listening to me today. I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to turn to a few comments and questions. This is from Gene Petrov. Gene is an amazing leadership coach who I admire so very, very much. I got to know him at our Uprising event in October. He said, such a great approach to work and life. Enthusiasm, positivity, and hope are contagious, and they stand out in the world. And, that's not easy, but I think that is what we need to focus on right now. Lisa Monk says, focus on actions even if they are not perfect. This is definitely something that I need to work on. To me, Lisa, that's really a key idea right now, and that it liberates you from worry. It liberates you from anxiety to a great extent, anyway, and it also sort of liberates you from taking personal responsibility that somehow that this is your fault. Focus on the big three, right? What are the big three things that you need to be working on for your work, for your business, for your family right now? Focus on the three and then make decisions that create positive actions in those three categories. And just like anything in business, it's probably not going to be perfect, but just work on those three things, and that is going to give you some. It's gonna change your frame of mind. So Dr. I is asking, what is the name of the Harvard Business Review article? So I subscribe to Harvard Business Review's daily update, and so it was in today's update. It was either today or maybe yesterday, but I'll look at that. And when this is over, I'll go back and I'll find that article and I'll put the link in the comment section. So if you're interested in that, Steve Zaker says our emotional states are contagious. Preach it, brother. Thanks. Marjorie says maybe it's my age, but the biggest thing I've learned about myself during this time is that all my decisions before today have been pretty damn good. I'm calm and prepared for whatever might happen. I realize that I'm not alone. This is happening to everyone. And what is important at this very moment is how we help and treat each other. Boy, I mean, I couldn't have said it better, Marjorie. I feel like we're in the ultimate reset, not just for business, but for the way we approach everything in our lives. You know, Marjorie, I think this is a beautiful comment and a beautiful sentiment. And I want to pass along just a small thing that happened to me that I sort of reframes things. If you've listened to the first episodes in this Embracing the Chaos series, you'll realize I was having a dental problem. That actually I had a bit of a small personal crisis going on because an old crown in the back of my mouth had come out, and the tooth underneath my crown was deteriorating. And I had an exposed nerve in my tooth. I had a jagged edge in my tooth that was like sawing on my tongue. So I was vulnerable to infection. I was vulnerable to incredible pain. And the dental offices were closing. Well, I was so grateful that the dental surgeon was open. And I went to the dental surgeon, and people there were so positive. They were so gentle and helpful. And they were like laughing. And they were singing along to the music coming across the PA system. And I felt so cared for. And it was unexpected that I felt this positive caring in a dental surgery office. And to me, it just made me appreciate this little lesson in this time of crisis, this little oasis, that truly focusing on the things that you can control, making the right decisions, and focusing on something positive is contagious. I had a lot of things on my mind. I had been losing a lot of sleep. I was worried about this tooth. I was in a lot of pain. But just experiencing this small positive connection in this office, it truly was contagious. And as Marjorie said, it's sort of a reset. Steve, by the way, is the president of Solo Segment. Awesome startup that I've been working on. Check out Solo Segment. They're working on really cool technology to help you take control of the search engine on your own internal website and the types of content that people are shown. Steve says we're focusing on short-term survival, right? Make sure we have cash flow under control, and what are the 3 cash flow scenarios we see playing out, and what are the critical few things we can do right now to be sure our clients are good and we're setting them up for success. So that is a great example that channels your energy into 3 positive actions, 3 positive decisions that are certainly under your control. And I think, Steve, that is a wonderful, wonderful example of taking a proactive approach to really pushing uncertainty aside. Let's see. So Ursula is sort of is also confirming this. Finding our 3 most important things is a good practice that we can carry over to business when this is over. And like I said, that's always been sort of part of my practice. That was something that was embedded in me from my days in the corporate world, where we always focused on the critical 3 things. So as I said, everyone, I wanted to kind of keep this to 30 minutes. Thanks so much for being here today. Of course, this will be on my timeline. If this helped you, please, I would encourage you to share this with others. I'm doing my best to create, a positive and useful message to the world in my own way. If you share this, you're helping me sort of find my place, my meaning, my purpose right now as a teacher. I'm also going to save this video and post it on YouTube so you can find all the Embracing the Chaos episodes on YouTube. So thanks so much, everyone. Hang in there. I appreciate all the wonderful and all the great comments you've had. And thank you, my friends. And I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode. If you have an idea of something that you'd like me to talk about and cover, I'd certainly do for you. So either leave that in the comment section here or send me a note. And thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves.